featuring the Vermont Cheese Trail, which includes farm stands, cheesemaking viewing, and more from over 30 of Vermont's cheesemakers, September 6th through 13th. More at vtcheese.com.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then on Morning Edition, President Trump is touting a preliminary trade agreement between the U.S. and the European Union.
We've reached a deal. It's a good deal for everybody, I believe.
Trump also held talks on Gaza and Ukraine during his trip overseas. The details and so much more on Morning Edition for NPR and WNYC.
You can hear the merger a-blowin' coming round the bend.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Odoo, offering software that provides building blocks for creating a custom software suite. Odoo, what businesses need. And by Rubrik, dedicated to giving businesses the power to bounce back fast when cyber attacks target the cloud. More at Rubrik.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. Good morning to you. First, trade negotiators for the U.S. and China are meeting in Sweden for a second day of talks. This could lead to a presidential summit. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer reports.
At the very least, the Sweden negotiations could lead to an extension of a truce in the U.S.-China trade war that paused triple-digit tariffs until August 12th. There are much bigger issues on the table, though. U.S. companies want more access to the Chinese market. The Trump administration wants more curbs on fentanyl ingredients made in China that end up in the U.S., and is also concerned about Chinese purchases of Russian and Iranian oil. And China wants access to sophisticated computer chips made in the U.S. that are used in AI. The Financial Times is reporting the Trump administration paused curbs on technology exports to China to help facilitate the trade talks and a possible meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi. In a social media post last night, Trump said he's not seeking a summit with Xi, but may go to China. He says an invitation has been extended. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
The U.S. has set a new deadline for Russia to make progress on ending its war in Ukraine or face new economic sanctions. Erin Delmore is following this for us.
President Trump said on Monday that Russia will have 10 or 12 days to take steps toward ending its 3.5-year-old war in Ukraine, or the country will face consequences. Namely, he's threatening sanctions on Russia and on the businesses and individuals that buy Russia's exports. It's a harder line than President Trump has taken in the past when he's shown hesitation to impose new sanctions. But now it seems that his patience with Russian President Vladimir Putin is wearing thin. He usually isn't shy about saying the two have a good relationship. But Monday, he said he was disappointed in the Russian leader. And so Trump is shortening a deadline he'd set earlier this month of 50 days. He said there was no reason to wait and that he didn't see any progress being made. Meanwhile, the U.S. has reached a new tariff deal with the EU that's poised to help Europe move away from reliance on Russian energy. In the deal, the EU pledged to buy $750 billion worth of energy from the U.S. spread across 3 years. The EU has been buying more liquefied natural gas from the U.S. since Russia invaded Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the goal is to absolutely get rid of Russian fossil fuels and hailed the energy agreement with the U.S. as a win.
Erin Delmore with our partners at the BBC there. Stock in United Health down 3.3% in pre-market trading now after it said this morning its profit will be even lower this year than previously suggested. Last week, the insurer confirmed it's under investigation for civil fraud amid questions about how it bills for Medicare Advantage, a privatized version of Medicare. S&P futures are up 0.3%. NASDAQ futures are up 0.5%. The guardians of interest rates at the Federal Reserve kick off their two-day meeting this morning. Among the predictions that Fed officials will not lower rates. We'll know that by about 2 Eastern tomorrow. A second prediction is that the Trump administration will not like that decision. Lower interest rates would ease the cost of borrowing, but given higher prices from higher tariffs, lowering rates prematurely could rekindle more general inflation.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Viking, exploring the world in comfort. With a fleet of small ships, Viking offers travel experiences for the thinking person. Discover more at Viking.com. And by Affinity, provider of the CRM for the private capital relationship economy. Affinity knows who has the best relationship with the right startup. Affinity.co/marketplace.
We're monitoring as two huge haulers of freight by rail are working on joining forces. Union Pacific, big in the west, is in talks to acquire Norfolk Southern, which is easterly. The deal would create the largest freight rail network in the country, which will attract the attention of antitrust regulators. Reporter Daniel Ackerman has more.
If you want to ship something from LA to New York, you've got a couple options. You could pay an airline to fly it there or a trucking company to drive it. But one thing you can't do, pay a rail company to bring it by train. There's no single freight railroad with coast-to-coast service, which is something of a shame, says Ari Rosa, a logistics analyst at Citigroup.
Railroads are more cost efficient for most items and are also more fuel efficient and more environmentally friendly.
The merger would create the first true transcontinental freight rail. That could incentivize shippers to send more stuff by rail by eliminating a major Midwest choke point in the system.
Chicago is congested.
Railroad analyst Tony Hatch says Chicago is one place railroads do something called interlining.
Interlining, where you're connecting to the eastern carrier from a west or vice versa, requires often, changing the locomotives, changing the crews.
And while it's a chance for train operators to grab a hot dog and deep dish pizza, Hatch says interlining between networks isn't entirely efficient.
So if you own the entire thing, you will move the assets where they make the most sense. You will save a lot of labor. You'll be much more reliable. You'll have more capacity.
Overall, says Stuart Churls with FreightWaves,
it would be a seamless one receipt transaction from coast to coast, which was envisioned, of course, when the Transcontinental Railroad was authorized under Abraham Lincoln.
But Churls says there's a reason it hasn't happened yet.
Shippers have to be assured that they're going to be getting benefits of this kind of tie-up, which is going to create a monolith of a railroad.
A monolith that others might call a monopoly. In addition to antitrust concerns, Churls says smaller mergers have led to costly traffic delays as railroads struggled to integrate their operations. And Churls says, looking at this deal from a high level,
nobody was really clamoring for a coast-to-coast consolidation of the railroads, except perhaps some CEOs and their bankers.
Regulators have held up a high bar for railroad mergers in recent decades. This deal is a test of whether that's changed, says Citigroup's Ari Rosa.
If the White House weighs in on this, I think it will be an indication of the extent to which the White House is comfortable with creating these mega companies.
Rosa said it could take regulators more than a year to review any deal. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
Our producers are Tamar Fagan, Ariana Rosas, and Erica Soderstrom. Our senior producer is Alex Schroeder. Our supervising senior producer is Meredith Gerritsen-Morby. In Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio. It's Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by Poster House, a design-forward museum.